Welcome to the Geriatric Dietitian, your go-to resource for nutrition that supports health, independence, and confidence in aging. I'm your host, Katie Dodd, registered dietitian and geriatric nutrition expert. Let's dive in. Hello and welcome to the 13th episode of the Geriatric Dietitian Podcast, Oral Health in Older Adults, Why It Matters More Than You Think. Now, this is going to be the first of 5 episodes where we're diving into all things related to oral health for older adults. And you might be thinking, Katie, aren't you a dietitian? Why are you talking about teeth? Why are you talking about the mouth? And it's very simple. The mouth is the first route of nutrition. If someone can't chew, swallow, enjoy food, it becomes much harder to meet your nutritional needs. And that's why oral health is something that I've always paid close attention to as a geriatric dietitian, a dietitian who works with older adults. So let me share a little bit of backstory on where my real passion for oral health came to the table. I had been very lucky early on in my career to go to conferences, and I always loved listening to dentists speak. Dentists, dental hygienists. The more I learned about, oral health, teeth, and understanding the big picture of how it connects to nutrition, I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is so important. And so when I was working as a home care dietitian for the first 13 years of my career, two of the questions that I would always ask on my assessment: do you brush your teeth and do you floss? And I know so often when I got that question, I get the side eye of people being like, why are you asking me that? Like, aren't you supposed to be asking me about the types of food I'm eating or something? But the reason I ask that is because it gives me lots of information. If you're not brushing your teeth, if you're not flossing your teeth, you're not taking care of your dental hygiene. If you don't take care of your dental hygiene, then it makes it very difficult to eat food. And I will tell you, when I would encounter people in their 90s, even 100, and they'd still have a full set of teeth, almost every single time they brushed and flossed every single day. The conversation of oral health is so important when it comes to nutrition because sometimes we can take for granted our teeth, right? We can take for granted chewing and eating until we can't anymore, until pain is there. And when you have pain or when you're missing teeth, it just leads to all kinds of problems. So this leads me to something that is kind of like a myth versus reality that often comes up in my space. And one of the biggest myths that I see in this space of aging is that dentures are inevitable, and they are not. The truth of the matter is losing your teeth is not a part of healthy aging. Sometimes we have this picture of like, well, grandma and grandpa wore dentures. That's just what happens. But this is not a normal part of healthy aging, okay? So oftentimes the reason people have dentures is because their oral health care was so poor for the duration of their life, not brushing, not flossing. Then what happens? You get cavities, cracks in the tooth, pain in the mouth, infection, inflammation of gums. Chewing and eating food becomes difficult. It becomes painful. And let's be honest, the cost of dental care is pretty darn expensive. And if you go long-term not taking care of your teeth, you're putting off those bills because, quite frankly, getting fillings or crowns or bridges are a lot more money than, getting our teeth cleaned and getting those annual exams. But it's just something that not everyone does. So I do have a blog article on my website, The Geriatric Dietitian, and it's all about nutrition and oral health for seniors. It's one of the first blog articles I ever wrote back in 2019 when I started my website, because this is a topic I'm so passionate about. Because with proper oral hygiene, routine dental care, older adults can keep most, if not all, of their teeth. So I think that this is a really important message and conversation that tooth loss isn't something normal that we see with age. We got to make sure that we are taking care of your teeth. So let's talk about why we as dietitians care so much about oral health and why I ask my clients, do you brush, do you floss? And sometimes I get that side eye of like, I'm not at the dentist. Why are you asking me these questions? So putting on the hat of a dietitian and thinking about nutrition, think about the important nutrients. depending on how long you've been listening to the Geriatric Dietitian Podcast. When I first started the podcast, we talked about what makes nutrition for older adults different. We talked about really important nutrients, including protein, including fiber. So when we think about all the different food groups and foods that are important for health and nutrition, we think protein, we think fiber, fruits, vegetables, whole grains. But those foods, most of them, depending on how you prepare and serve them, but most of them require some pretty decent chewing. And what happens if you can't chew those foods? What happens if, chewing is painful? What happens if, for example, you've lost some of your teeth and you don't have, we call it occlusion, where you have a tooth on top and a tooth on bottom and you're able to, chew and grind your food. And if you're missing certain teeth, or you have, pain or cracked teeth, you're not able to adequately chew those foods. So suddenly nutrition becomes a lot more complicated, right? Poor oral health can make it difficult or even painful to eat nutritious foods, increasing the risk for poor dietary intake and malnutrition. So this is one of the reasons why oral health and nutrition are so closely connected. The mouth isn't separate from the rest of the body. It is the first route of nutrition. It is where nutrition begins. So I do think that oral health, there's so many reasons why someone might not brush or floss. A lot of it is like the habits that we instilled when we were younger, that like, man, I've never brushed, or maybe you brush, but maybe you're like, I've never brushed twice a day. I don't floss. That's something I'm just not used to. And adding these habits can feel it's not that it's hard, but it's just one more thing that we have to add to the list of things that we need to do. But I think the sooner we can all, older adult or younger adult, it doesn't matter, all prioritize brushing and flossing our teeth, it's really going to help long-term for preserving teeth, preserving oral health, nutrition, overall health. And quite frankly, oral health concerns, that's not just up to the dentist. It's not just the dentist, the dental hygienist. Again, as dietitians, we spend a lot of time talking about oral health and nutrition. We ask about appetite. We ask about weight changes. We ask about chewing, swallowing, food preferences. As dietitians, we do something called the nutrition-focused physical exam, where we're looking for signs of malnutrition, but also we look in the mouth, have someone open their mouth, see, okay, are there any missing teeth? Because again, that occlusion, we need a tooth on top and a tooth on bottom in order to chew. Seeing if there is any decay or pain or issues going on with the health of their mouth. And if there is, as dietitians, we recommend referral to dental care and primary care. So these conversations gives us opportunities to notice when something might not be right. And it also tells you if someone is maybe avoiding a certain food, like avoiding apples or avoiding meat because it's just too hard to chew, or maybe they only eat soft foods, like, okay, in the morning they're eating like maybe having pastries or certain foods that might not have the strongest nutritional value, but they're easy to chew, right? So these are cues that oral health can be an issue. So again, I do have a blog article. If you go to my website, the Geriatric Dietitian, if you click on blog, I'll have show notes for this podcast episode there, and also on YouTube. I'll put this in the description, and I'll make sure I have the link to that article because it's really good. It covers all the things that we're going to be covering in this 5-part series and more. But a few important things is, of course, making sure that we're taking care of oral health now. If you have if you're like, well, gosh, Katie, it's a little too late. I have pain in my mouth now. I am already there. Looking into different resources available for dental care. I mentioned it's very expensive, and I understand that when you're on a fixed income, trying to add these additional costs, but different communities have resources and programs available for low-cost dental care. So it definitely is something worth looking into and not continuing to put off, because it's something that unfortunately won't get better on its own. You do have to, get some care if you do have damage to your teeth now. So this was just kind of a primer introduction to oral health in older adults. And over the next few series, we're going to dive into common oral health problems in older adults. We're going to be talking about dry mouth. We're going to talk about tooth loss and dentures, and then practical nutrition strategies to support oral health. So we'll be diving deeper. Thank you so much for listening to the Geriatric Dietitian Podcast. I hope that you enjoyed this episode. And if you did enjoy it, please subscribe, share it with another friend, maybe another healthcare professional, a caregiver, anyone that you know. And remember, the mouth is the first route of nutrition. And when we protect oral health, we are supporting better nutrition, better health, and better quality of life. So I will see you in the next episode. Want simple nutrition tips to support healthy aging? Download my free guide, 10 Essential Nutrition Tips for Healthy Aging, packed with practical ways to stay strong, nourished, and independent as you age. Grab your free copy in the show notes or visit thegeriatricdietitian.com.